This viewing is no coincidence. If your eyes are on these words at this moment, it signifies a profound alignment, a phenomenon Carl Jung defined as synchronicity. What you are about to understand transcends mere theory or philosophy. It is a psychological revelation, one that Jung foresaw would manifest precisely in this period of history. He termed this monumental change the shift. Those who choose to remain psychologically dormant during this transformation risk being utterly overwhelmed by unseen collective forces. Yet, you are privileged. You were selected, pre-chosen, to witness this unfolding and prepare for what is imminent. Because Jung left a crucial warning specifically concerning this exact temporal juncture. That warning begins with a realization most people instinctively reject. The very God image is fundamentally changing. Jung's insight was revolutionary. Humanity doesn't merely worship deities, we project the contents of our own vast unconscious mind onto them. Today, that collective unconscious is undergoing a transformation so violent and vast that it is shattering every structure we once considered immutable. Within our collective psyche, the God image functions as the essential psychological anchor for civilization. It embodies our foundational ethics, our sense of shared purpose, and our absolute definition of moral right and wrong. Consider it the invisible societal cement, the cohesive reality that binds millions into a functioning culture, a shared understanding of what it means to be human. When this anchor remains firm, societies thrive. Roles are understood, institutions maintain order, and life feels inherently manageable and secure. But when this fundamental image alters, the anchor begins to drag, causing everything built upon it to fracture. Institutions fail, defined roles dissolve, predictability vanishes, leaving individuals psychically adrift with nothing solid to grasp. You sense this internal disruption, don't you? That deep, unsettling pressure often felt in the chest or solar plexus. Jung clarified that this feeling is not mere clinical anxiety. It is your core psyche reacting acutely to a subterranean, seismic shift occurring far beneath the level of everyday consciousness. Those unable to perceive this underlying change are destined to be consumed by it. Jung termed this destructive reaction the psychic epidemic. It arises when vast populations lose their internal psychological grounding, making them desperately susceptible to possession by rigid ideologies, political movements, and dogmatic beliefs that offer the illusion of certainty in a world spiraling toward chaos. He meticulously documented this process in pre-World War II Germany, observing highly rational, educated individuals suddenly swept up by a collective delirium that defied logical explanation. Professors, doctors, ordinary families, all absorbed into a movement promising absolute order amid total confusion. These were not inherently malicious individuals, they were simply unconscious people. Their lack of inner awareness rendered them unimaginably dangerous. When the God image wavers, panic ensues. People frantically seek new tenets to grant them purpose, and in this vulnerable state, they become prone to possession, not by spirits or external demons, but by powerful, hidden psychological forces. These forces commandeer their minds, leading them to believe they are acting with supreme clarity and purpose, when in reality, they are puppets controlled by elements they cannot perceive. This psychological virus sweeps through the collective unconscious. One person falls to possession, then two, then millions, each becoming a potent carrier. They infect others not through logic, but through the sheer force of their absolute, unwavering certainty, their rock-solid conviction, and their total refusal to entertain doubt about their own cherished beliefs. Jung charted 3 distinct ways this epidemic manifests within the collective mind. 1. Critical deterioration. Individuals lose their capacity for critical thought. They stop vetting narratives, accepting only information that validates existing biases, and aggressively rejecting anything challenging their worldview. 2. Binary division. An us versus them mindset solidifies. The world is reduced to allies and enemies, eliminating all middle ground, complexity, and nuance. You are unequivocally either in or out. 3. Psychic inflation. They experience what Jung termed psychic inflation. They feel certain they occupy the moral high ground, fighting for universal truth. This inflation, however, renders them completely blind to their own shadow side, their capacity for cruelty, and their hidden, unconscious motivations. This phenomenon is currently raging on a scale that Jung, in his time, could barely have conceived. Digital platforms have supercharged the psychic epidemic, causing ideologies to possess people at lightning speed, allowing a single post or video to spread psychological infection to millions globally. The most terrifying facet is that the infected believe they are immune. Every possessed individual is convinced they are the conscious, awakened observer, while everyone else has lost their mind. But true consciousness does not feel like absolute certainty. Consciousness is defined by doubt, by persistent questioning, and by the painful willingness to acknowledge your own inner darkness. The psychic epidemic, conversely, is characterized by absolute conviction. This conviction is the definitive signature of possession. This is not history. This psychological crisis is unfolding immediately. You witness it in the escalating polarization, the unbridled rage, and the absolute certainty people have that they are right and everyone else is evil. Jung warned that when the collective unconscious undergoes this violent shift, it manifests as mass psychosis. People cease critical thinking, stop questioning dogma, and become controlled by archetypal forces that override individual self-awareness. The tragedy is that they remain completely oblivious. They believe they are awake, informed, and conscious, while they are, in fact, sleepwalking through a psychological apocalypse. Jung foresaw this precise moment in his comprehensive work on the aeons. In his book, Ion, he explained that human consciousness progresses not linearly, but in vast cycles of approximately 2,000 years, known as aeons. The transition between these cycles necessitates a psychological death and subsequent rebirth for humanity. We currently stand at the threshold, moving from the age of Pisces into the age of Aquarius. Before you dismiss this as mere astrology, understand Jung's actual meaning. The aeons concern not celestial mechanics, but the shifting, dominant psychological archetypes that fundamentally structure human awareness. The age of Pisces was characterized by radical duality, the strict split between light and darkness, good and evil, spirit and matter. It was the epoch of structured religion, rigid hierarchies, and reliance on external authorities dictating absolute belief. This structure provided psychological containment for 2 millennia, ensuring societal stability and clear definitions of purpose and role. External authority supplied a crucial sense of psychological safety and direction. However, that age is definitively terminating. The age of Aquarius demands something radically different: the necessary dissolution of those old structures, the disintegration of external authority, and the fierce demand for individual consciousness. The shift between aeons is anything but smooth. Jung likened it to a psychological earthquake, utterly demolishing the foundations of civilization. The death of the old God image entails the collapse of the entire psychological architecture that had long given humanity meaning. Every system, every certainty, and every institution built on that dying foundation is beginning to crumble. In this transition, people experience something that feels precisely like the end of the world. Psychologically, that is what is occurring. The end of the reality they understood, the structure they trusted, and the source of meaning they relied upon. All of it is being systematically destroyed, yet the new world has not fully materialized. This intermediate period, the death of the old and the terrifying birth of the new, is naturally filled with suffering, confusion, and collective madness. Humanity is trapped between epochs, clinging desperately to what is dying while paralyzed by fear of what is emerging. Jung knew this transition would be catastrophic for the majority. When the structures that have held civilization for 2,000 years are removed, people do not suddenly become free. They become terrified. They grasp desperately for perceived solidity, projecting their need for absolute authority onto politicians, influencers, and rigid ideologies. The result is greater rigidity, extremism, and the absolute conviction of having found the truth. But this truth is merely a psychological defense mechanism against the terror of losing their anchor. The louder the certainty, the more desperate the inner attempt to convince themselves that the ground remains solid. But the ground is gone. The old aeon is deceased, and clinging to its remnants is futile. Jung identified this panicked reaction as the shadow of the shift, the most hazardous element of the current crisis. This shadow is the source of the profound polarization, rage, and intensity we see globally. When the collective unconscious shifts, all the darkness repressed for millennia surges into conscious awareness. Every denied impulse, every primal fear, every unrecognized evil floods the psyche. Individuals who are unprepared become psychologically overwhelmed. Unable to confront the darkness within themselves, they immediately project it outward, seeing evil everywhere except in their own heart. They become convinced that the sole source of the problem lies externally, in other groups, opposing ideologies, or different people. They attack, rage, and point fingers, but they are fundamentally fleeing their own shadow. The more they run, the stronger the shadow grows until they embody the very malignancy they claim to fight. This is the tragic paradox Jung warned of. The individual most zealous in fighting perceived evil is frequently the one most enslaved by their own unconscious darkness. They cannot perceive this internal possession because admitting it would dismantle their entire conscious identity. Thus, they project their darkness onto convenient external enemies, groups they can hate without moral guilt. The progressive becomes as dogmatically intolerant as any fundamentalist. The conservative adopts the authoritarian rigidity of a dictator. The activist becomes violently oppressive in the name of peace. All are possessed by the darkness they claim to oppose, convinced of their own clarity while acting out their unconscious shadow. This is the inevitable outcome of refusing to integrate one's own darkness during the shift. Jung documented this recurring pattern. The dedicated pacifist suddenly turns aggressive. The champion of tolerance becomes spitefully judgmental. The preacher of love is consumed by hatred. This is not mere hypocrisy. It is the shadow taking command. And during the shift, the shadow ceases to be a merely personal issue. It becomes a catastrophic collective force. Entire civilizations, possessed by their shared darkness, act out on a massive scale. Wars, moral hysteria, genocides, and societal collapse. These events are the direct consequence of humanity's refusal to integrate the internal darkness, refusing to see that the true enemy is internal. Until this truth is faced, the very chaos we oppose will continue to be created. You feel this unbearable pressure, this unique vantage point that most people deliberately ignore. This is because you are one of those individuals. Jung hypothesized that during the shift, certain people would attain consciousness ahead of the collective. He called them the chosen ones, not chosen by celestial fate, but selected by their own arduous psychological development. These are the individuals who have already undertaken the inner work, consciously facing their own shadow rather than projecting it externally. Jung knew they would feel an immense crushing pressure during the transition, standing precariously between two dying worlds. They see the structures dissolving and sense the new consciousness struggling to be born. They feel utterly isolated because the majority remains stuck, projecting shadows and enslaved by unseen forces. This clarity is an exhausting, isolating burden. When they attempt to articulate this vision, they are dismissed as paranoid, negative, or crazy, told to relax and conform. but you cannot unsee the truth. You carry this weight, wondering if maybe you truly are the crazy one. Finding this video confirms your selection. You are one of the conscious ones. You have felt the tectonic shifting beneath reality and struggled to explain it to those who instantly judged you as mad. But you are not insane. You are awake. Jung left a precise map for people like you, the process of individuation. Individuation is not the quest for perfection, but the uncompromising path toward wholeness. It means integrating all the parts of yourself that you have repressed, denied, or projected. It demands facing your own shadow directly, preventing it from controlling you unconsciously. Jung insisted that this process requires brutal, unforgiving self-honesty, acknowledging the pettiness, the cruelty, the greed, and the rage that you condemn in others, yet exist within you. Until you integrate these uncomfortable truths, they will control you from the depths of the unconscious. This work separates the conscious from the unconscious during the shift. During this time, individuation is not optional. It is a matter of psychological survival. If you refuse to integrate your personal shadow, the collective shadow will consume you. You will lose your individual consciousness and join the mass psychosis. But if you commit to this conscious path, no matter the pain, you become what Jung termed the stable anchor. You become the person capable of holding consciousness in a raging sea of chaos. That is your non-negotiable role during the shift. The shift is not something you can stop or control. It is a natural process of deep psychological evolution that will happen regardless of readiness. Your only choice is how you respond. Will you remain unconscious and be swept away by unseen forces, or will you awaken and serve as an anchor for those around you? Jung believed the future of humanity rests entirely on individuals capable of maintaining consciousness during collective madness. These are the people who do not panic when the world appears to be collapsing. They see clearly when others are blinded by fear. They integrate their darkness instead of projecting it onto enemies. These are the guides who will lead humanity through the shift and into the new aeon. But here is the hard truth. Individuation is profoundly difficult. It is the most painful psychological work you will ever undertake because it demands facing everything you have spent your life fleeing. It requires acknowledging your own innate capacity for cruelty, selfishness, and evil. It requires ending external blame and taking full responsibility for your own unconscious motivations. Most people will never do this work. They will choose the comfort of projection over the pain of self-awareness. They will choose the seeming safety of collective possession over the terror of individual consciousness. But you are not most people. You were chosen to see this video because your psyche is prepared for the truth. And the truth is this: you are not going crazy. You are waking up. The world around you is going crazy. The collective is descending into madness. But you are becoming conscious. Consciousness always feels like madness at first, because it means seeing what others vehemently refuse to see. It means feeling what others deny feeling. It means knowing that the structures everyone trusts are built upon unconscious illusions. Jung said the conscious individual always feels like an outsider, always misunderstood, always burdened by seeing and knowing too much, while everyone else glides through life in blissful ignorance. That weight is not a punishment, it is a grave responsibility. You are being called to hold consciousness for those who cannot yet hold it themselves. You are being called to remain stable while your environment destabilizes. You are being called to see clearly while others are blinded by projections and possessed by shadows. This is the exact moment Jung predicted. The juncture in history when the God image shifts and humanity must either evolve or utterly collapse. You were chosen to be conscious during this transition, not because you are inherently superior, but because your psyche has developed the requisite capacity to see what is unfolding. Now you face a choice. You can ignore this truth, pretend all is fine, return to psychological sleep, and be crushed by the shift like the masses. Or you can accept your role. You can commit fully to individuation. You can become the stable anchor in a chaotic sea. You can hold consciousness for those who are still drowning in unconsciousness and guide humanity through the most hazardous psychological transition in 2,000 years. Jung left this solemn warning for you. The shift is here. The God image is changing. The collective unconscious is erupting, and most people will be destroyed by forces they cannot see. But you were chosen to see this before it happens. You were given the map. You were shown the path. Now the only question is, will you walk it? Will you commit to becoming conscious no matter the personal cost? Will you integrate your shadow and become whole? Will you serve as an anchor for those who are still drowning in unconsciousness? Because that is your purpose during the shift. That is why the universe brought you here. That is why you are watching this video right now. You are not going crazy. You are waking up. And the world needs you awake. It needs you conscious. It needs you integrated, because the shift will not wait. It is happening now. Those who are prepared will survive. Those who are conscious will thrive. And those who have done the work of individuation will become the guides for the new aeon. Jung knew this. He predicted this. He left the map for you. And now it is your responsibility to follow it. The universe chose you to see this before the shift. Now it is time to prepare. Now it is time to integrate. Now it is time to become the conscious individual Jung knew humanity would need. If you are ready for the shift, comment, "I am ready." Because this is not just a video, this is a call to consciousness. This is an invitation to individuation. This is your moment to step into the role you were meant to play. The old world is collapsing, the new world is being born, and you are standing at the threshold. Jung gave you the map. The universe brought you here. Now the only question is, will you answer the call? Will you commit to becoming conscious? Will you serve as the anchor humanity needs during this critical and arguably most dangerous psychological transition humanity has ever faced? The ultimate choice rests solely with you. But understand this, your presence here is not accidental. You were deliberately selected, chosen for a profound reason, brought here with an undeniable purpose. That sacred purpose involves 3 essential acts: to fully awaken your potential, to deeply integrate your shadow self, the ignored aspects of your being, and ultimately, to anchor and hold consciousness steady for a world that currently struggles, drowning in the depths of collective unconsciousness. If you feel fragmented or uncertain, know this: you are not descending into madness. Quite the opposite, you are finally ascending. You are waking up. The entire trajectory of the cosmos, it seems, is counting on your commitment to remain conscious and fully present. Thanks for watching. Until we meet again, perhaps in the next dimension.